Hey guys, welcome to another amazing episode of the Amanda Show. If you're new here, my name is Amanda, and on this show, we are diving into important conversations that affect Africa from an African perspective with the rest of the world. So, one of the first things I want to tell you now is that you may be hearing music in the background. My neighbors are blasting music. Well, I live in Nigeria, and Nigerians love music. So you may be hearing that. Please ignore that while we jump into this episode. So, in this episode of The Amanda Show, we are going to be discussing three important things as usual. The first topic we'll be delving into is the reports that came out recently. Now, I didn't have a video last week because I had some technical issues. I apologize for that. So, this topic now actually came in maybe the beginning of last week. Anyway, the news came out that the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is allegedly an active CIA asset. When I saw this news, I was shocked and I was infuriated at the fact that it just it came out and everybody's life continued as if we didn't hear one of the most serious news stories to affect any nation on the planet today, that your sitting president is an allegedly an active CIA asset. We'll discuss that in this episode of the Amanda Show. Then from there we are going to delve into a program that is going on in South Africa as we speak. It's the World Movement for Democracy, something like that. I'm going to find the full name and put it on the screen. So, because of what's going on, because of that, I have been spending the past few days thinking about this whole thing of democracy and what has Africa really gotten from proposed democracy that many African countries have been practicing. Then we would round things off with a very important statement that was made by the Prime Minister of Hungary, Victor Orban. Now, usually I just discuss things affecting Africa and Africa's relation with the world, but I want to delve into this conversation, even if it's not specifically about Africa. I want to delve into this statement made by Victor Orban because we are all living in the world together. And as you may know, um, recently Joe Biden, that's the president of the United States, approved Ukraine using long-range missiles into Russia. And then Russia responded to that with the launch of its ballistic missile. So we responded with that. And it's making me see how very close we are to a third world war. Even if you may say, okay, well, it's going on in Europe, Russia, Ukraine, United States, that is between Europe and the US. But remember that if there's a nuclear war, it's going to affect Africa too. If there's a third world war, it's going to affect Africa too. So because of that development going on in Europe, I'm looking at the whole, what is even pushing all these things? And Victor Orban gave us the answer recently. So we're going to delve into that statement by Victor Orban. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. And as always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends so that we can reach more people across the world. Let's begin. First things first, we just got news that the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is allegedly an active CIA asset. And Nigeria is calm. The National Assembly, the senators, as the NAS, nobody's, at least act like you're serious about ruling your country. Nobody in the National Assembly, in the Senate, nobody is proposing any motion for investigation before we even talk about impeachment. Now, why this is really okay, first of all, before I let you know what I think and how I feel, I want to give you a little backstory about what's going on. Now, in 2022, um, David Houdini, he's a Nigerian investigative journalist. Some of you may know him, some of you may not know him. He investigated and released a report of Bola Ahmed Tinubu's history with narcotics, that's hard drugs in Chicago. And one of the things he revealed was that once he was apprehended, he forfeited $460,000. And you know, in the court of law, once you forfeit, is as good as being guilty. Anyway, but after that, they requested for, because now Bola Ahmed Tinubu was contesting for presidency in Nigeria. So requests were made, freedom of information requests were made to the petition to the US government, the FBI, and the DEA, CIA, several institutions were freedom of information requests were petitioned to them to release the information they have about Bola Ahmed Tinubu since he's contesting for the president of Nigeria. And what United States did release information, the government released, but it was redacted. Following the release of the redacted materials, David Houdini and Alan Greenspan, they insisted that the United States provide unredacted information for the public since this guy, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was contesting for president of Nigeria. The CIA and the DEA petitioned the court and told the court, this is why we're not going to release the full information. I'm going to put some of the things they said on the screen. But one of the things they said was that if I'm paraphrasing now, that if CIA agents or human resources find out that their secret is not safe with the CIA, it's going to jeopardize them and jeopardize US national security interest. But it wasn't just that. Even the DEA, once they released their reason for refusing to release the full redacted information, they said that while Nigerians have a right to know what their government is up to, Nigerians do not have a right to know what their president is up to. So if this thing is true, it's a it's a serious issue because they're telling you that your country is being governed by someone who is not working in the interest of your country because there is credible proof that can say this guy is a CIA agent, probably even an active CIA agent, and the whole country is quiet. The whole country is quiet. Do you know what it? Like I said earlier, this clearly shows that this guy, whatever it is he's going to do there, he's not working in the interest of your country. Even when I went to WikiLeaks and I searched his name in WikiLeaks, you can do it. Visit the WikiLeaks website and search his name, and you find out that while he was governor of Lagos State, based on the information on WikiLeaks, and you can just go through it. While he was governor of Lagos State, he was always in the U.S. embassy giving information, or as they say, he was ratting other politicians within Nigeria. So who knows how deep he is in this thing? So how can you trust him to make decisions for Nigeria if he's allegedly an active CIA agent, meaning he's working for the interests of the United States? You know, there's a joke we used to make in Nigeria. I've seen it several times because when Tinubu travels to other parts of the world, in some images you see he's so far from the when when they take this their group image, the group pictures, maybe it's at the Korea Africa Forum or maybe China Africa Forum, all these international forums they go for, like even the G20. Tinubu is in not all, but in most pictures, Tinubu is so far. People are always like, oh no, even international society, nobody wants to associate with him. But now that this information has come out, I'm thinking, really thinking, is it that because many of these world leaders they too have their intelligence? Is it that some of them may have gotten information that this person is a CIA agent? So you have to be careful of what you say around because at this point you don't know. At this point you cannot say. Do you understand? You don't know how deep he is in this thing. You don't know how because honestly, people have been saying this several for a very long time that this administration and the one before now they were set up to break Nigeria's economic back because it's hard to explain how Nigeria can go from an economy of 500 and something billion dollars in 2015 projected to hit $1 trillion in 2026. Nigeria can go from that, and no, Nigeria is like even if you just hands off, the Nigerian economy will run. You don't need to do too much to make Nigerians productive because Nigerians are very hardworking people. So you don't need to do too much to make Nigerians productive. Even if you just allow Nigeria be, Nigeria is going to grow. So I've been thinking, several people have brought up this, and I've been really thinking because how can an economy be on the trajectory of hitting $1 trillion in 2026 when it was at 500 and something billion dollars in 2015? And as we speak, from the Buhari administration to the Tinubu administration, in a time frame of 8 years, Nigeria has gone from that to just a little over 200 billion. It has to have been an intentional act. Now, this is why we are questioning what is this about. Even during the campaign, there was a video that went viral of this current president, Tinubu. where he said we have to reduce the purchasing power of the people, blah blah blah. He was talking about Nigeria, reducing Nigeria's purchasing power. So yes, it was taken out of context because there's credible evidence to say okay, it was taken out of context. But the way this thing happened, right? The way this thing happened of the economic sabotage of Nigeria is now making me think of everything, both the statement he made on the campaign trail, the this information coming out that he's allegedly an active CIA agent is beginning to make me think because to bring Nigeria to just barely a little bit over 200 billion, it has to have been an intentional effort. Now, my question is, who is Tinubu working for? Clearly, it's not the Nigerian people because the whole issue with insecurity has not been fixed. Okay, fine, we don't expect it to happen magically, but we are not even seeing steps taken to curb insecurity in Nigeria. The economy, what we just spoke about, it has impoverished a lot of Nigerians, right? Even apart, so everything. Sometimes you see some deals that he's signing up to. The only thing that is coming out of him, just the same way I'm seeing it with Kenya, the only thing that is coming out of Tinubu is loan, loan, tax the people, get loan, tax the people, get loan. And you're like, okay, all the loans that you are taking, what are you using it to do? The taxation you're collecting from the people, what are you using it to do? You tell me that this thing is not intentional sabotage. Another important question to ask is now that this information has come out, why is our National Assembly and Senate, everybody's quiet? Nobody's asking for investigation. Because that is what you do if this is not state capture. That is what you do. Even if you, okay, let's just act as you may not be serious about the investigation. Say, let's just do the investigation. And we already know we are going to say there's no credible evidence and blah, 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 and throw this whole story under the carpet. Well, nobody even in the House or in the Senate, nobody even pushed the motion. Can we investigate this thing? How can the commander in chief be allegedly a CIA agent? How can the commander in chief, the one who gives instruction to your armed forces, be allegedly a CIA agent and the whole country is quiet? This is state capture. The whole country is quiet. Like I mentioned earlier in the next segment, I want to talk about this whole democracy thing. But this is what you begin to look at, right? And you say, what is even this democracy? What is this democracy? If the DEA told us in black and white, I'll put it on the screen. The DEA told us in black and white that while Nigerians have a right to know what their government is up to, they do not have a right to know what their president is up to. Who is the president making decisions for? Is it not the people? The day he decided to campaign and to run for office, he became a public official. Therefore, what is going on with him, especially in regards to Nigeria, it should be public knowledge. But the DEA just told you that you have no right to know Nigeria. They just told you. You can kick and scream and say, oh, this is not democracy because this is not the way democratic society should work. They just told you they don't give an F. They don't give an F. You don't have a right to know what your president is up to, even if your president is an active CIA agent. One of the biggest issues that I have with this whole structure of governance in Africa. But I want to use Nigeria now because we are talking about Nigeria. One of the biggest issue I have is the way everybody is in the pocket of the president. The judiciary is the executive is in the pocket of the president. The legislative arm is in the pocket of the president. The judiciary arm is in the pocket of the president. So everybody's now thinking, oh, myself. They don't want to do their job. Because if you look at the United States now, I'll give you an example, right? We all know that there's this whole movement, this shadow government. This Joe Biden is looking like the president, but he's not the person who is making the policy. Is arguably, you can argue that he's not the person making the policies that govern the United States because whether you have Democrats or Republican, U.S. foreign policy is generally the same. But after the United States gave permission to Ukraine to use American ATACMS missiles to strike into Russia, there was serious debates and objection in the United States. Even some politicians in the House, they even spoke about impeaching Biden on that. Yes, it didn't go anywhere, but at least there were people who were revolting and saying this is bad. Why am I bringing it? Because I'm bringing this up because the way governance is supposed to, particularly this kind of this type of structure of government that we run of the three arms, the judiciary is there, the legislative is there, and the executive is there to serve as checks and balances. Not one part of governance of government can control everything, right? That's the way it's supposed to run. But I'm bringing this up now because in Nigeria, it's like everybody is, oh, Mr. President, sir. There is no, you don't know the value of your seat, of your office. They don't know what it is. They don't know the value of the office. Because tell me why not one person spoke about investigating these allegations that the president of Nigeria, the commander in chief of the armed forces, the number one person in the country is likely a CIA agent. Nobody said anything. We need a complete overhaul of the system. True. We need a complete overhaul of this system. I'm just tabling this here so that everybody will know. Because if elected officials, the government, the three arms of government will not do anything about it, the least the people can do is to keep talking about it so that posterity will bear us witness. History will bear us witness that we spoke up. That is why I'm lending my voice to raise alarm for everybody to know that there is credible evidence from the CIA itself, the CIA and the DEA. They sent this to the courts in the United States and to say this is the reason why we are not going to release, we are not going to unredact the information released about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the whole country is moving on as if nothing happened. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. That the most populous nation in Africa, the most populous nation in Africa, is likely governed, allegedly governed, by an active CIA agent. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your family and your friends, and even those who are not your friends, so we can expand and spread this word to everyone around the world. Okay, in South Africa, this week we've had this move democracy. I'll find the full name and I just know that's their Twitter handle, but I'll find the full name and put it on the screen. It's about spreading. It's an institution, a non-governmental organization focused on spreading democracy around the world. And it's funded by the usual people you think of, people who are aligned with American interest and Western interest in general. It's funded by them. So I'm seeing a lot of Africans at the said event, even people that I usually look up to within the continent. I've seen them there and they are discussing, the normal rhymes and rhythms of democracy. Now, I want to discuss this whole concept of democracy from an African perspective. Last year, the former president of Nigeria, President Olusegun Obasanjo, he said that this Western liberal democracy has failed in Africa. And when he said it, that was when I tried to do this show earlier. I said something. I said the issue is because the Western liberal democracy, we've there's an argument to show that we have not really practiced it the way it's supposed to be practiced. And I laid out that argument in that audio because it wasn't a video, it was an audio, but it's still on this YouTube channel. Anyway, now that I am seeing this move democracy, I'm really taking more time to think about this concept of democracy. So the first thing that I would say is that the concept of democracy is fine. The idea of democracy is that is the people who will decide their fate, is the people who will decide who will govern them. Now, listen here, I'm going to use Nigeria as an example because we just spoke about the president of Nigeria. I'm going to use Nigeria as an example. Nigeria's population is 220 million people, give and take 220 million people. The 220 million of us cannot imagine 220 million of us going to say, okay, we want to govern ourselves by ourselves. It's going to be chaotic. Right. It's going to be very chaotic because I will say this for another person. Then 220 million of us are saying. Then you can't make decisions and you cannot decide. You can't make decisions about how the country is going to run. Now, if you say, okay, let it be a monarchy, the monarchy doesn't really. hold the people much. Yes, they hold security and certain things in the country so that it doesn't go haywire and they're overthrown. But the monarchy, if you look at many the place we saw national monarchies in instances in Europe, many of them were just working for their interest and they didn't care what the peasants did. It was just they and their clique. So the idea of democracy is supposed to be the majority, the people should decide how the life they want to live and then elect officials who are going to prosecute that vision for them. It's not a bad idea. It's not. I think it's actually a very noble idea. But when we now look at the way the world works today and what democracy, the so-called democracy thing, has turned out to be, it's just beginning to make me roll my eyes because now when I hear democracy, which is supposed to be a good and honorable thing, now when I hear democracy, I just think of U.S. national interests. That's because that's what democracy has become in today's world. Democracy is United States national interests in your own country, not your national interests. Yeah, they may say, oh, it's your national interest. No, baby, when you see the way they play on ground, it's not your national interest. It's United States national interest. That is what today's democracy means. Because it's not democracy that made them bomb Iran. Sorry, Iraq. It's not democracy. They say they're taking freedom and democracy to Iraq. And they destroyed that country. It was democracy in the name of democracy. Was it not democracy we saw that unleashed in Syria? Was it not democracy? Was it not democracy we saw in Libya with the fall of Gaddafi? It was not democracy. Okay, now that Gaddafi has fallen, did they get the democracy? Did they get democracy? And the Americans just moved on as if they didn't just unleash the worst insecurity in Africa. The whole insecurity issue that we're suffering in Africa today, it came from 2011 when NATO did that thing in Libya. It was in the name of democracy. They said Gaddafi was a dictator. We don't want dictators. Blah blah blah. Dictators are bad. Dictators, the worst thing to happen to humanity. Dictators, terrible. Democracy, good. They bombed them. This is the democracy. Is Libya a democratic nation today? In Libya, as we speak, there is no central government in Libya. As we speak in Libya, there are open air slavery markets where they are selling people that look like Obama. Obama did that in Libya, but they are selling people that look like him in open air slave markets in Libya today. Is that democracy? So that's what I've been spending as I'm seeing this whole move democracy events going on in South Africa, and they're having our young people across Africa regurgitate the same State Department talking points. I'm just thinking, what is all this democracy about, self? They say, oh, China is a dictatorship. China is too bad. Blah 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 blah. But you ask the average Chinese, they are content with their country. You ask the average American, and they are like, no. The average American has nothing good to say about the way they are governed. Many of them say America is heading on a bad path. Go to Europe and ask them in Europe. So-called democracies like United Kingdom and Germany and France, many of their citizens are dissatisfied. But the so-called dictator in Russia, the Russians are happy with it. Majority, even when the Americans run their polls, if you say, okay, you don't trust the polls that the Russians run because dictators are liars and blah, blah, blah. When the Americans do their own research, the Americans always find that Putin has popular support in Russia. There was a day I was watching, that was in 2022. I was watching one program on Sky News, and they were talking about this popular support of Putin. The question that the anchor of that program asked is, how is Putin deceiving his citizens? How is he deceiving the Russians? Because they don't understand how after all the demonization of Putin, he has popular support. They tell you dictator in China, bad, bad, bad. See what the Chinese are doing. Did the Chinese come out to beg you for money? Did they come out to beg you for money? But the so-called these same people that are telling you democracy, 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 are the people that are propping up the worst regimes in Africa. Did they not back the ones we saw in DRC? Did they not back them? Are they not backing Tinubu? Nigeria's Tinubu, they are backing him. That he's coming into power is very questionable. They're backing him. Are we not seeing them back people like Paul Biya in Cameroon? Are we not seeing that? So that's why I've been spending so much to think what is even this thing called democracy. It's supposed to be government of the people, for the people, by the people. The people decide how they will be governed. The people decide the life they want. The people decide and the leaders prosecute the vision of the people. Let's look at the United States. Is the United States a democracy? Let's look at it. No, let's ask ourselves, is the United States a democracy? I don't think it's a democracy. Because let me give you an example of the most recent thing that happened now. The United States authorized and gave permission to Ukraine to use its ATACMS missiles to strike deep inside Russia. Effectively, that is, United States was striking Russia. And who asked the Americans to vote on it? Nobody. Do you know how serious this thing is? That the Russians, if the Russians bomb, they will bomb America. Let's say they bomb America and the Third World War happens. Who gave permission to Joe Biden and the people who are making decisions there? Who gave permission? Who voted and said, okay, yes, this is what we want? Nobody. Britain just also followed because Britain will always be a happy satellite. Britain just followed the United States and said, okay, yeah, you can use our Storm Shadow missiles. Was there a referendum in Britain? None. Even let's go back to the United States. The president elect, that is Donald Trump, ran and campaigned that he's going to stop the war in Ukraine. He campaigned on it. He's going to bring peace in Ukraine. And the Americans said this is really good, and they voted him. You can make an argument that one of the reasons Donald Trump did not just win the electoral college, Donald Trump also won the popular vote, was because he convinced Americans, said we are voting because we want an end to war. Because that was one of the things Donald Trump ran on. Yet, this Biden, who has a few weeks before he leaves office, a few weeks to leave office, he just escalated without consulting the American people. Without consulting the American people, will want one thing, the government to do another thing, and they say, go and screw yourself. We don't care. Is that a democracy? How is that government of the people, for the people, and by the people? It looks to me like an oligarchy, one of the worst kind. Do you understand? So even in the United States, that is this supposed to be the so-called bastion of democracy, we are not even seeing democratic acts. It's not a democratic nation. So why we in Africa, they are still pushing this whole thing down. Like I said before, the concept of democracy is fine, but when we are seeing it being played out, that thing is not making any sense. Every time I hear democracy now, because when I was thinking about this whole move democracy event in going on in South Africa, it's just I had to just say, okay, what does democracy mean to you in today's context? And to me, what democracy means in today's context is America's national interest. It does not mean government of the people, for the people, and by the people. So instead of us looking away and say yes, okay, because if they even have the National Endowment for Democracy has this thing on their website where they tell you the most democratic nations and blah 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 blah. Some of those people, they have they're not democratic, are propped up by these same people who are saying democracy is how we should go. And then they come to us and they give us talking points from the State Department. And all our young people are repeating the same talking points from the State Department. How can you then make this, if you're the future of Africa? If these young people are the future of Africa, how can you then make decisions for the benefit of Africa and your respective countries when you're just rehearsing State Department and CIA talking points? How? How? If you will not take a step back and even look at that United States and say, is this country even a democracy? We have a lot to learn in Africa. Really, we have as Africans and in our respective countries, we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be African? What does it mean to be Ethiopian? What does it mean to be Egyptian? What does it mean to be Rwandan? What does it mean to be Senegalese? What does it mean to be South African? What does it mean to be Nigerian? What does it mean? And then once we decide for ourselves what it means to be African and our respective cultures, what this thing actually means, then we can then ask ourselves, how do we want to be governed? Because clearly, the one that we have been doing since is not working. I told you some weeks ago that the anointed successor to Paul Biya in Cameroon is likely his son. What is democratic about that? We have seen it in all across Africa, where a father would die and anoint his son will come in as successor. His son will come in as successor because they just give you the illusion that you are voting. In fact, one of the things I took time to think about after Nigeria's elections last year, because those elections really made me think. One of the things I took the time to think about was what does this voting actually mean? Because you say, like, why I took my time to think about that, because I wanted P2B to be president of Nigeria, and quite a number of people wanted it, but we didn't get it because, well, whatever. So I now sat down and I was thinking and thinking. I said, how did we even arrive at it had to be Atiku, P2B, and um, Tinubu? Who else? Like, okay, is there in the APC now, that is Tinubu's political party, was there nobody else who could have contested, who could have been the flag bearer for the APC other than Tinubu? Right. So one of the when I was thinking about this, the illustration that came to my mind was when I decided that this whole thing is a sham, this whole voting something is a sham. The illustration that came to my mind was, this is a school. I'm going to give you that. I'm just going to relate to you. This is a school. I own a school and I come to tell the parents, oh, whatever you want your students to learn or your children to learn, they can learn it in my school. I've created a structure whereby anything that a parent would like their child to learn, they can learn it in my school. And the parents, because of that, parents are like, oh wow, I want this, so they come to my school, and then I say, oh yes, you can learn it. Then they ask me, you said you can learn anything in my school, in your school, right? Whatever I want my child to learn. And I say, yes, whatever you want your child to learn, the child can learn in my school. And then they say, okay, fine. So I bring out my list and I say, okay, this is what we offer. And the parents, even if it's 100 things that we offer, compared to other schools that are offering 10, for example, the parents now goes through that list and say, for example, the parents want the child to learn nursing. This is just an example. But in my 100 list, there's no nursing there. Do you get where I'm coming from? In that list I gave to the parents, there's no nursing there. But I want the parents actually wanted the child to learn nursing. So at the end of the day, the parents say, okay, they'll just pick because I'm offering more, I'm giving more options. So they just pick from the list. The fact that they have picked from that list I gave them doesn't mean the children are actually going to learn what the parents initially wanted the children to learn. So that is what this whole voting thing from last year after Nigerian's election. I started thinking about this thing, and that's what this whole voting thing is beginning to look to me. It's just somebody somewhere will bring a list to you and tell you vote. You now say, yeah, you're going to vote. Is it that P2B or Atiku or Tinubu? And you start fighting yourselves over the three of them. Why is it just who decided who you would have? You know, this is what I've been thinking. Who decided it had to be those three? So the answer I came about was, who decided the three is from the party, the political party. And I said that is why most Africans, African youth, we need to get serious in politics and not just coming out to talk about politics, but we have to become card bearing party members to be registered to a political party. Imagine if 10,000 of us flood political parties in our respective countries. Let's use Ghana as an example. In Ghana, elections are coming up and they are giving, okay, these are the two people, suppose that these are the two people that are likely going to come into power. You can vote for this one or for this one. So imagine 10,000 Ghanaians become party holder and card bearing party members and say, and when they are voting within the party politics, they say it's not going to be person A, we want this person. And at the end of the day, with such overwhelming number, they would then choose who will go and represent them at the national level in the presidential elections instead of some person who was anointed somewhere. To round off this segment, I want to mention something that I heard Candace Owens saying. But in case you don't know, I think you should know. But in case you don't know, Candace Owens is an American political commentator. And what a question she asked that I've really been thinking about. She asked the question some months ago. She said, how okay, it wasn't like a question, it was like a statement. And she said that she really thinks that they are breeding American politicians somewhere. It's not just because it's not just a situation where anybody can come into office. There's a process of breeding the next leaders. And these leaders come in and they follow the same foreign policy, the same even domestic policies that benefit a select few. This is me adding my part. But when she asked that question or she made that statement about breeding of American politicians, I said this thing is true. Because if you look at many of these politicians, is that they went through the same school, or they are among the same circle of friends, or they've no somehow their whole path is connected. Like this last week now, I've been spending a lot of time. One person who has piqued my interest, I've spent a lot of time listening to her talk. Even if I don't agree with her ideologically, I've been spending a lot of time listening to her talk and her lectures because she's very graceful. Is Condoleezza Rice, the former Secretary of State of United States. And something that I found very interesting is that Condoleezza Rice was lectured, she was taught by US former Secretary of State, the first female Secretary of State of America, her father. Then you now find out that even that same, is it not Aubrey? I'll find her name, I'll put it on the screen. But you find out that even that first female Secretary of State of United States, she and Hillary Clinton went to the same school, but in different sets. So somehow all these things are interconnected. So even if America, and maybe that's one of the reasons that they voted against Donald Trump, because Donald Trump did not come from that established line of these are who are people who are going to be the politicians. So I'm looking at that from Africa, right? I'm looking at that from Africa. We just these are the people the political parties have brought. What have brought forth? What is the procedure? Like who said it just had to be Tinubu, Atiku, and Peter Obi? Who said that? So that's why this whole thing of democracy is beginning to look to me like more of furthering United States national interest in your country more than it is about giving you leaders who actually work for the benefit of your country. So that's why, as it is today, whenever I hear the word democracy and I see Africans clamoring and screaming democracy, which in itself, the idea is not a bad thing, but the execution has turned out to be just advancing United States interest in your country. That's whenever I hear the word democracy, it just makes me roll my eyes. So let me know what you think about this whole a lot of African youths going to South Africa to hear and regurgitate talking points of the US State Department. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Also, let me know what you think about this whole democracy, this concept of democracy. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. In the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with your friends and your family so that we can reach more people across the continent and across the world. Finally, in this episode of the Amanda Show, we are going to Hungary because the Prime Minister of Hungary has probably just given the most comprehensive answer to the chaos that we are seeing in today's world. I've mentioned several times in this episode that United States approved Ukraine to use its missiles, its long-range missiles, ATACMS, to hit Russia, to strike deep inside Russia, and the British and the French followed suit with. So I've been really thinking. So what's this whole thing about? You know, you are seeing the chaos in Europe with um Russia and Ukraine, and the explanation they give you from the State Department, United States State Department, is oh, it's a case of a big aggressor, Russia, a big country bullying its small neighbor, Ukraine. Okay, we are seeing the chaos in the Middle East, where in fact this week, this one just happened yesterday when I'm recording this happened yesterday. The ICC has issued arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, that's the Prime Minister of Israel, as well as his former Defense Secretary, Yoav Gallant, and then someone from the Hamas side. Anyway, we're seeing the chaos going on in the Middle East, and every day with Israel just going across around, killing children, destroying homes, bringing that like Gaza has turned into a parking lot. Now it has not just stayed in Gaza, we're also seeing it in the West Bank and we're seeing it in Lebanon. But the State Department is telling us it's Hamas. Okay, Hamas is not in the West Bank, but let's take it that it's Hamas. No problem. And I'm asking myself, what is this? Then I'm also seeing the posturing and the hotspots in the Pacific with China, China and Taiwan, with Japan, with the Philippines. We're seeing this thing. And I'm like, this chaos, what's going on? And all around the world, it's as if suddenly Biden just unleashed disaster everywhere. Joe Biden, just unleashed disaster at the whole world. So I'm thinking, what is this? I had my for a while. I had my reason for it. I had what I told myself. This is the answer. But I want to discuss. I want to delve into that based on what the Prime Minister of Hungary has just said, Viktor Orban. I'm going to paraphrase, but I'll keep his quote on the screen. Viktor Orban said that the reason for all this chaos that's going on in the world today is because for the first time in 500 years, the world is not dominated by Western civilization. And it's true. What you're seeing today is not a case of, oh, Russia aggressor and Russia just wants to take over Ukraine because Putin is Hitler, Putin is crazy, Putin wants to bomb everywhere, Putin after conquering Ukraine, it wants to conquer Poland. It's not that. It's not a case of Hamas this, blah, 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 scatter everywhere. Okay, Hamas, yes, I agree what Hamas did on October 7th is very terrible and there's no excuse for it. But it's not that case. What is going on in Asia is not a case of China just wants to do. I told you earlier that one of the people that I'm beginning to listen to a lot of her lecture, even if I don't agree with her ideology, is Condoleezza Rice. And one of her lecture I listened to this week, or it was from last year, she said something that came to me as, oh my God, thank you for being honest and saying this. Well, she was talking about China, and she said that China is beginning to posture as a big dog to challenge America's supremacy in Asia. She said that China is challenging America's supremacy in Asia. And the first thing I'm asking myself is, United States and Asia, how many thousands of miles away? How many? Why do you want to be supremacy in Asia, supremacy in Europe, supremacy with your Monroe Doctrine in the Americas, supremacy in Africa, supremacy everywhere? Do you get? So Victor Orban just gave the exact word and completely, because this statement by Condoleezza Rice I just made mention of now clearly shows you that Victor Orban really said it. Because remember, Condoleezza Rice, these are the people of Iraq disaster, Afghanistan disaster, or these are the people. So anyway, Victor Orban said for the first time in 500 years, Western civilization is not calling the shots. That the world has moved to Eurasia. So if you're asking yourself, why did Joe Biden unleash chaos around the world? Or the people who are using Joe Biden as puppets, why did they unleash chaos around the world? This is the reason. Because Western hegemony is over. American hegemony is over. America, what is going on in Ukraine is not a case of, oh, Russia bad, bad, bad to take over its neighbor. No, it's America using Ukraine to try to weaken Russia, who America considers as a threat to American hegemony. But we have seen that it has failed. What we are seeing in taking form in Asia is not a matter of China trying to take over Taiwan, because even the America says believes in the America's official policy. They say they believe in the one China policy, meaning that Taiwan is part of China. So this is not even a, so there's no such thing. If you are going to follow the one China policy that America believes, there's no such thing as an independent Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. But what they are doing, because they see China as China is a threat to America's global supremacy, so they want to defeat China. That way they can become the only boss. And it's what you're seeing everywhere, even in Africa. These things we are seeing with military bases, and you're hearing we have to counter Russia and China in Africa. It's not because they think the Russians and the Chinese are not good for Africa, like they care. We have our history with the Europeans, like they care. But it's just because they want to maintain American supremacy in Africa. So Victor Orban said it up, and that is why I'm talking about this today. Victor Orban has nothing to do with Africa. He's not an African leader. But I'm saying it because we're all part of a global world, a global architecture. So whatever happens anywhere still affects us. That's why I'm having this conversation today. What you're seeing around the world is the empire has collapsed, and it has just realized it has collapsed. So it's trying to grapple and hold things together to still maintain its supremacy on the global scale, but it has ended. So now I want to now talk about this whole thing about European civilization, Western civilization. I hear it all the time. As someone who spends a lot of time listening to geopolitical analysts and lectures in universities around the world, I hear this whole thing about Western civilization all the time. They say, oh, it's Western. this Western civilization. When they were the Europeans were colonizing the whole world, what did they use as excuse? We are taking civilization to everybody. When the Americans went around with their own war paths and escalation and bombing everywhere, oh, we are taking democracy to them. They are not democratic. We need to teach them our way of life. As if there's something inherently wrong with not being European or Europeanized. Do you understand? So even this whole thing of looking at it like the Western civilization is the supreme civilization, and everybody has to try. After all, we are speaking English here, and everybody, even you go like some. Let me before I continue, it just came to my mind now. In Nigeria, right? The the Hausa people, Hausa Fulani in Nigeria, they speak English, but the same Hausa Fulani in Niger, they speak French. In Nigeria, the Yorubas speak English. The same Yorubas in Benin Republic speak French. Do you get where I'm coming from? So this whole thing about Western civilization, like it being this, in fact, there's been no civilization other than Western civilization. That idea in itself is flawed. Because if we look at it, civilization started from Africa. It started from Egypt. Civilization started from Africa. It did. Now, if you look beyond Africa, since we are talking about the globe, if you look beyond Africa, there was a serious and sophisticated civilization in the Middle East. All these ancient empires we think of, in the Middle East, the Persians, Middle East, the Assyrians, Middle East. These are rich with rich culture that their civilization dates back thousands, 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 thousands of years. But no, that one is inferior. It just has to be European or well European civilization, aka Western civilization. That's why when you dress a certain way, they laugh at you that why you dressing like that. You have to dress like them. Maybe that's why today I decided to wear so I decided to wear this. No, what if you don't dress like them? There's something inherently wrong with you. If you don't talk like them, there's something inherently wrong with you. Like you have to aspire to be European. Well, the European system is over. And they cannot, after 500 years, they cannot believe it. I'm sure that those ancestors will look at these ones now, these ones who are calling the shots in the West, and say, how stupid these people are. How stupid these people are. So, just before I started recording this video, I was reading a, a write up by, he's an intellectual. I like him, he's a YouTube channel, but he also has a Substack. So, he was talking about it is European, of course, but he was talking about Europe post America. Like clearly, the American Empire is over. So, like I've said several times on this show, the world is now trying to create a new system that will govern it. That's why everybody is running around trying to create a system that will benefit it in this new world order. So, anyway, in the article I read, he said this is just an idea. The Europeans may not follow this path, but this is just an idea. What he was saying is that now that America has fallen and it will still fall some more, Europe will finally arrange itself to assert itself on a global setting. That was what he said. And so this made me think because this is what he's saying. I've heard a lot of Americans, even Condoleezza Rice. I told you right now, she's the person I'm listening to a lot. She said something that America cannot sit out of the global order, that great powers don't mind their business. That's what she said. She said great powers don't mind their business. So those who are thinking that America should focus on, this whole MAGA movement and America First policy, he said those who are saying all of those things I'm paraphrasing, those who are saying all of those things are wasting their time because great powers don't mind their business. Then she said that if America makes the mistake of sitting out of the creating a new global order, that Russia and China are going to create one. And the one that Russia and China create is not going to benefit the United States. So therefore, she also said that she does not want, and she asked her students, who wants to live in a world created by Russia and China? I've even heard Anthony Blinken say this. If I'm it's one of these, Anthony Blinken or Jake Sullivan, one of them, but they said they don't want to live in a world created by Russia and China. And I'm asking, I said, are you threatening the world? Because if for something for some reason that thing happens, are you threatening that you're going to blow up everywhere? Do you know what it means to say we are not? You do not want to live in a world created by Russia and China. So I'm bringing this to our attention now. Just as Victor Orban has told us, the whole chaos we are seeing in the world today is not because Putin is crazy. It's not because Xi Jinping is a dictator. It's not because anything that they are telling you from the mainstream media, Western mainstream media, is none of those things. It's because American hegemony is over and they're trying and kicking and screaming because they don't want it to end. And even if it looks like if it's ending, they want to create a new one that will favor them. So I'm saying the beginnings to your knowledge in Africa. Yes, they have spent it for several decades, even as good as these 500 years. They have spent telling us that Africa, we are nothing. Africa is good for nothing. Africa offers nothing to the world. Africa is just the place that they come and they kneel and they beg, give us aid, aid, aid. The world just has, it's like the world just has to, oh, well, Africa is a necessary evil because they need our resources. So we might as well just, well, necessary evil. But I'm bringing this to your knowledge now. For you to, we as Africans, we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what does it mean to be African? We need to remember the African civilization. We need to relish in the glory of the African civilization. How did we forget the Zimbabwean empire? How did we forget Benin, the Benin kingdom? How did we forget Mansa Musa's Mali? How did we forget? The way we forgot, we need to begin to remind ourselves. Because for you to be able to assert yourself globally, and for you to say, no, we must create a pole, an African pole in this multipolar world, is an ideological part of that thing. And you cannot create a strong pole for Africa if you're creating it from a place of inferiority. It will not happen at all, at all, at all. It's not going to happen. If you want to create that African pole for a place of inferiority, you're going to keep getting all this nonsense we've been having before. Otherwise, if we fold our arms and we wait for other people, whether it's Russia or China or the United States or even Europe, as this person I told you, I read this article before I started doing this show, as the argument was making that Europe is going to assert itself again. If you wait for Europe to create an order, you remember your history with Europe, bah? You remember your history with Europe. So the only way that we can be sure of preserving Africa and the African civilization in this multipolar world is to sit down and think of Africa. What does it mean to be African? Condoleezza Rice is the question she asked. I'm going to be quoting her. Those of you who watch my show, I'm going to be quoting her for a very long time in the near future because I'm spending a lot of time listening to her lecture because I want to understand something about her. But that's by the way. One of the questions that she asked, she said, "What does it mean to be American?" The answer she gave is not the answer the regular Americans are going to give, but she gave that answer. And the answer she gave is an answer of greatness of our country. It's greatness. That's the way they sold to you America's greatness. But before there was an American greatness that was manifested, there was an ideological greatness that the Americans had to have. You can't create those kind of policies. You may not like America. I don't like Imperial America. I don't like it. But I'm telling you, many of the things that I have learned recently has come from Imperial America. Because to create such a thing, you tell me, this thing doesn't just happen. The United States, yes, Biden and the US, this generation we've been seeing for the past decades, are people who have destroyed America. In my opinion, they've destroyed the United States, particularly this Biden administration. But before this destruction of the United States, the zenith, the peak of the US, where the United States got to, you do not get there by hoping and wishing. That's not how the world works. You do not get there by kneeling down and praying, help me, help me. No, 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 it doesn't work like that. You get there by being intentional. Intentional, yes. Beginning from where? What does it mean to be American? Because they thought they were better than you. That's why they said your mode of governance is bad. Take democracy. And when you said, no, no, we don't want democracy, they bombed you. They bombed you to oblivion. Go and ask them in Iraq. Go and ask them in Afghanistan. Go and ask them in Libya. But the shameful thing is after bombing, they still did not get the democracy. That's why they're saying Putin is a dictator. Xi Jinping is a dictator. Not because of anything. It's ideological. This thing is ideological. So we need to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be African? Go back to our history books and read of the glorious of the glorious African, those who came before us. Before the shackles came, there was an Africa. Before slavery, there was an Africa. And it's painful that we don't know it. It's painful. And that's why you hear people debate that when they tell you that Africans got to the Americas before Columbus, people say never. Why? Because this is the Africa they have idea of. Those of you who are begging for aid. That's why there was a video I saw of these African Americans. They are black, but they are saying they are not descendants of Africa. Some of them are saying they are from India. Why are they trying to disassociate themselves from Africa? Why are they trying to cut off and completely wash their hands away from Africa? Because the Africa that they are seeing today is not something to be proud of. Let's be honest. Where else do you have such shameful level of poverty except here? Where else? The Africa today, what after all they say, success has many friends and failure is an orphan. Because this is the Africa they are seeing. That is why. But if we are going to transform this continent, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be African? Victor Orban said that the Western civilization has dominated for 500 years. It is over. As we speak today, the Western civilization dominance is over. We have an opportunity for Africa not to colonize it, no, not to colonize anyway, for Africa to assert itself. But before you can assert yourself to create an African pole in this multipolar world, you first need to think that Africa is a big deal. You first have to think that Africa is the real deal. And that is why I'm asking, what does it mean to be African? What is the ideology? Who are our heroes past? Who are heroes? Why? And we don't know. In many schools across Africa, we know Abraham Lincoln. We know him, but we don't know any historical figure in Africa. We don't know. Do you understand me? So I'm saying this now because I want to reiterate that the future we're entering, even from tomorrow, the foreseeable future, until this multipolar world fully forms, is going to be a very turbulent one. Because everybody is going to be pushing and screaming and making moves to make sure that whichever order the world finally settles to have is an order that will benefit them. And I'm saying so that we Africans, as we are saying, we must build an Africa pole. It starts with our mind. It starts with ideology. What does it mean to be African? Then, after we decide what it means to be African, we will then ask ourselves, what do we want to do in the world? Because you can say, oh, well, Africa, oh, I'm saying this now, some people may be laughing. You're probably, yes, it's very likely. I'm saying this now, some people may be laughing. I'm like, oh, please, Africa is always going to be the backwater. After Donald Trump called it a shithole. Africa is always going to be a shithole. Oh, nobody saw the Chinese come up. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw Russia coming back on the scene. Nobody saw it. Nobody saw it. But all these things happened because some people in those countries said there can be more for China, and we are going to be intentional in creating that more for China. There can be more for Russia, and we are going to be intentional in creating that more for Russia. Even the United States, before the United States got to this global supremacists fighting to keep together, before the United States got there, some people came together and they said there can be more for this country, and they were intentional in creating that more. All these National Endowment for Democracy, all these TSOs that you see that is funded to the tune of millions of dollars, you think the Americans just want to dash money? No, they're doing that to push their national interest in your country, even sometimes at the detriment of you. They don't care. American national interest has to stand. So if we are going to create an African pole that will benefit Africans in this multipolar world, we have to sit down and say we have to be intentional. What is our strategy? What are we looking to create? We have to come together to do this thing because I don't see anywhere that said Africa cannot do it. There is no law anywhere that says Africa cannot be a formidable player on the global stage. Maybe some people have it as their biases. Oh, Africa has been poor for a really long time, so that is Africa's future. It's always going to be the poor place. I choose to differ. I choose to differ. I beg to differ. I say no. Yes, it has been poor for a long time. That does not mean that tomorrow it's going to be poor. And I'm not saying this to sell silly hope. I'm not saying it to sell silly hope. Africa has everything it needs to become a formidable force on the global scale. Look at India. Come on now. What are we talking about now? What are we talking about? Look at India. See India. India used to be you know when you say the center of poverty. Yes, there are still poor people in India. But I've said this before, I'm saying it again. India is more important when it comes to geopolitics than the United Kingdom that colonized it. That did not happen by chance. It did not just, the Indians did not stumble into it. It did not happen by chance. So Africa is going to happen, but it's not going to happen by chance. If we keep folding our arms and we are waiting for things to happen, the same thing we have been seeing for 500 years, we'll continue to see it. But I'm reminding you that there was an African civilization, there was an Africa before the slave ships came. There was an Africa. Before they took your ancestors away in chains, there was an Africa. Who says tomorrow there cannot be an Africa greater than that one? Okay, maybe that one was not great. Fine. Who says we cannot create a new one? Who said so? I don't see anywhere. Even if, like I said before, even if some people might have it as their biases, I don't give a hoot what their biases are. I don't see anywhere, no book, no. And when I said no, God did not tell us that the African cannot change the state of Africa. You may be saying the problem is our leadership. I'm telling you now, let us remove our leaders from our mind. Because if we keep looking at leaders, the things we have been having since post-colonization to continue. The people that will change Africa is me and you. Don't worry. I have a plan. I have a plan. And that, like I said before, next year, one of the things that we are going to do, we are going to take control of the media landscape in Africa. Citizen journalism. Citizen journalism. Everybody, you're going to be responsible for what is going on in your country. Everybody's going to be, because that's where it starts. Because why do you think you had such a thing? Was it called Operation Mockingbird? I think it was Operation Mockingbird, but I'll find the main thing and put it on the screen. What was that? When the CIA entrenched itself in media institutions to send out a certain narrative. Why do you think we had it? Media is important. That's why you had it. That's why you had it. Media is important the same way that a nation protects its airspace, its land borders, its seas with military. I think a nation should also take its information space seriously. And that's why we are going to, together, we are going to say, we are going to create an African media movement. We are going to do this in 2025. Get ready. Those of you who know how to write, will use your gift of writing. Those of you who know how to talk, who know how to speak, will set up funds and you start doing your own talk because, like I'm doing, you do your talk. Those of you who know how to talk but you don't want to show your face, you will use podcasts. Those of us who know how to just do short, you will use social media. We will use everything. Everything. We cannot let the African narrative be pushed by outsiders. You can't allow CNN, RT, Al Jazeera, CGTN, and the rest of them come and be talking about the African story. No, it will not happen. So we'll begin by there, from there to with that media, we'll begin from there to set up, to begin to arrange Africa, prop up Africa, so that Africa will take its space, a formidable place on the global scale. You can tell that this thing I'm very passionate about it. It's all over my face. I've been moving across around this place since. Well, Victor Orban has just told you that the reason the world is the way it is as we speak is because the era of Western civilization dominance is over. And he says the attention has moved to Eurasia. But I'm telling Victor Orban that Africa, the attention has moved to Africa. I've said this before. They told there was a, just to round off, there was a um something I read somewhere, and they said the 19th century, the 18th century was the century of Europe. The 19th and 20th century is the century of United States. The 21st century is the century of Asia, and the 22nd century is the century of Africa. And I said to them, I'm not going to wait 100 years for Africa to be a formidable player on the global scale. They may have said 21st century is the century of Asia. I'm telling them that 21st century is the century of Asia and Africa. Because it is, that's what I'm saying is, it is this intentionalism that is going to make it a reality. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comment section below, from Victor Orban's statement to this move of creating an African pole in the multipolar world. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video with all your friends and all your families, and even those you don't like. Share this video with everybody so we can spread this message across the continent and across the world. And that's all we are covering in this episode of The Amanda Show. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.